Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with the New York City supergroup, the Royal Bopsters. We caught up with them on the last day of January 2021 to talk about their sophomore release called Party of Four. Led by the great Pete McGuiness, most of the band also joins this call for a wide-ranging conversation about their newest CD, their history, the COVID world, the future, and much more. You're going to enjoy this one.
I'm excited to have all of you on the line right now. Thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Sure. Absolutely. Happy to do it.
Groovy. So I think the one thing that we should probably do here for the sake of all of us and for all the listeners out there so that we can fetter through the voices and have kind of it's almost like we're in the beginning of an audio book here. We need to figure out who's who. So what we need to do is go to the beginnings of the Royal Bopsters. Let's go in and let's kind of get to the beginning of how this began and have the voices kind of construct us up into this new album today. So whoever wants to kind of take the conch right now and start kind of weaving that narrative, someone can take the baton from there, and then we'll kind of get into, you know, the modern, weird, surreal world we live in and having an album come out and all of that good stuff.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Amy, why don't you start and then hand it off to me, and I'll hand it off to Pete, et cetera, and then off to James.
Cool. Okay. Well, hi, everybody. This is Amy London, the soprano of the Royal Bopsters, and I'll try and keep this in a nutshell. The bottom line is that Holly Ross, our late and beloved former alto, and I, who have been very good friends for many years, went to visit Mark Murphy in the Actors Fund home where he was living. And he was very depressed. He felt very dejected. He was just kind of sitting there in a nursing home, and I was like, come on, Mark, let's do something. So I started bringing him to the new school where I've been on the faculty since 1992. And simultaneously, Dylan Pramick was coming back to the vocal jazz ensemble, my jazz choir at the new school, as a bass ringer. And one day he walked in with a fabulous arrangement of Red Clay, and I read through it and I went, I don't want to just teach this, I want to sing it. So I had the idea to do a concert with Mark with Dylan's arrangement of Red Clay. Holly Ross joined us. So the ringers in the vocal jazz ensemble were me and soprano, Holly as the alto, Dylan as the bass, and about 10 students. And we met on Saturdays for a while, and it led up to a concert with Mark Murphy where we did an hour's worth of material with him. We had gathered a bunch of arrangements. Dylan wrote some more arrangements. Holly brought an arrangement. I brought an arrangement, and we did a fantastic concert with Mark. It was sold out. It was standing room only. And when the concert was over, I said to Mark, you want to go in the studio? And he said, sure. So we went in the studio that summer. That was the summer of 2012, I believe. And we recorded 4 songs with Mark, and then we had the idea to keep inviting our bebop singing heroes, and they all said yes. So amongst all of us, and Darman Meter stepped in as the tenor at that point, we wrote arrangements for John Hendricks, Annie Ross, Sheila Jordan, and Bob DeRoe. And that was the first project. It was released in 2015 on the Motema label called The Royal Bopsters Project. And it did very, very well. And fast forward to now, our 2020 release is called A Party of Four. And very, very sadly and tragically, we lost Holly to cancer in May, a few months ago. And although she's no longer with us, she is very well represented on this album. She sings very beautifully on it, and she looks great on the cover, and she was involved in every aspect of putting this album out. And very happily and very joyfully and gratefully, we have invited the wonderful alto Gene O'Connor to pick up the ball where Holly left it. And Gene and Holly sang together in a group called String of Pearls for 35 years, and we've all been friends for many years. So Gene was the perfect choice, and my and our number one choice to join us. So we are moving ahead with Gene, but we do have this album with Holly on it. So the first 2 albums have Holly Ross on them, and we have dedicated this new album to Holly and to her beautiful and amazing life. She accomplished so much, and she was a fantastic jazz singer.
Wow, it's a great story. Does anybody want to add anything?
Well, I suppose this is Dylan Pramick. I'll jump in from here. Cool. And, it was after I graduated that we started really kind of collaborating together on a number of projects, but this one, of course, I really flanked the Bopsters with that performance. It started with Mark Murphy and then blossomed to include Annie Ross and John Hendricks and Sheila Jordan and Bob DeRoe. And Lambert Hendricks and Ross in particular have long been just a huge inspiration for me. So it was a really magical moment to get to sing with both of them and for me to improvise with John Hendricks. So this has just been just a wonderful New York only experience these past 10 years. And then shortly after the first record came out, the Royal Bopsters Project, we were lucky enough to have Pete McGuiness join us in the tenor chair and as the other contributing arranger for the group. And so it's just been we couldn't have found a more perfect fit to fill that chair. Pete being just a Grammy-nominated arranger and an amazing vocal improviser. So we have all these tastes that lock together so well, and it's been just every step of the way with each one of these people that I've gotten to work with, just a wonderful education for me, as an arranger, as an improviser, in so many ways. I've grown so much working with these wonderful singers and musicians. And so now Pete and I did the bulk of the arranging for the new record, and Pete is already furiously working on new arrangements for whatever the next project will be. And then, of course, we are very. Amy did a wonderful job of introducing Jean and talking about how excited we are to have her with the group. But one thing that I'll add is that as far as I mentioned, how our tastes work together so well. She is right in there. We've got so much common ground, and she's a wonderful lyricist, and so which is something that we love. We can talk about vocalese and our passion for that, and the way we like to include that in our arrangements. But Jean is a phenomenal vocalese writer and just lyricist and singer, and we're just really looking forward to creating some new music with her. Pete, would you like to jump in and talk about when you joined us there?
Oh, sure. Dylan, you're very flattering. I'm furiously writing. I definitely am.
Well, I'm not doing any writing at all right now, man. I wish I had time to write right now.
I just got off the computer this very second and wrote A flat. It was the perfect place, too. Listen, I'm really thrilled to be in this group. I spent most of my life as a professional trombonist. That's what I did for a living for a very, very long time. Singing was always a very glorified hobby for me. I got pretty good at it over the years as I kept working on it, yes. And I've been in a couple other vocal groups in the past that I had some mixed feelings about. So to be with vocal singing becoming more of a focus for me as a professional, not so much trombone anymore, to get to work with real seasoned pros who are, that's what they do. They're singers. They're not a sax player who doubles on singing or something. This is what they do. I knew about Amy's professionalism for a very, very long time. So to get to write for a group of people like Dylan and Amy and now Jean, I get to basically write whatever I want. I can write as modern as I want, as sophisticated as I want, and it's a groove. It's a real high-level thing. So I'm very proud to work with these people, and I'm glad they invited me to join the group 5 years ago. And we've done a bunch of gigs. I mean, let's not forget that. We were headliners at Newport a year and a half ago, and Sheila Jordan has been a big part of that, of course. We've toured Europe twice, including performances in Athens at the club, their big club called the Half Note, had a week-long engagement there, and we were headliners at Ronnie Scott's in London. So, and of course, lots and lots of gigs in New York and in some of the clubs in New York. We're trying to make a splash. We're really trying to be a group that's of the level and stature of, say, Manhattan Transfer or the New York Voices or even Take Six. I mean, but we're doing it in our very bebop-oriented vocalese. Dylan talked about Lambert Henderson Ross. That whole bag about writing lyrics to instrumental things and solos is something we all enjoy. And so it's an art form that Lambert Henderson Ross did a lot of, and less groups are doing that now. And so we want to pick up that torch in a modern way. So I hope people will dig our new album. Gene, please jump in the conversation. Forgive me.
Yes.
I'm the newbie, and thrilled to be the newbie. I mean, it's a little bit bittersweet for me. But actually, I've been learning an arrangement called Bittersweet that Pete, you wrote that one, right? It's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Holly Ross was one of my closest friends, and I spent such an enormous amount of time with her, on the road and rehearsing and just as a friend. And so it was a very big loss for me. I wondered how I would feel taking her place in this group, but it's been so thrilling because the music is so good. And, just to have these fantastic arrangers within the group it has just been wonderful. And I've told people that I am so accustomed to having Holly's voice in my ear for 30 years that when I hear her on the records, it's just like coming home. It's just like, oh, yeah, there's Holly. It's been a wonderful experience for me. It's, as Amy mentioned, I was in a vocal group with Holly called String of Pearls that was all female, three female voices. And we did some really adventurous stuff. We did some retro stuff, which every female vocal trio seems to have to do. We also, hired very good arrangers, and we played at the Kennedy Center, and we played at Avery Fisher Hall, did some wonderful gigs together, and wrote vocalies on various tunes. I moved up to Saratoga Springs, New York about 17 years ago because I married my second husband. I lost my first husband to cancer. And he was teaching at Skidmore College. I had a baby, and so I have been up here in Saratoga basically doing a lot of solo gigs. Then I would run into town and do a String of Pearls gig now and then, but I've been doing all kinds of gigs up here. But this is like three New York-based brilliant singers, and I'm just thrilled to have it be part of my musical life again. And I'm just, fortunately, COVID is giving me the time to learn these damn charts.
Takes a minute, definitely.
It takes a minute. I'm familiar with, learning charts, but some of them go by pretty quickly too, Dylan. But I'm enjoying it. It's just great at this point to dig in, and also having sung in a female vocal trio for so long, it's really nice to sing with two guys, just to have that support and not have to be the lowest voice in the group. So,
that's right. You were on the bottom for all those years.
I was always on the bottom. So there's Dylan. Dylan has this amazing baritone where he can sing some really low notes, and it just I feel cocooned by all those voices. So and I love singing with Amy. I love singing with Amy because Amy is a very swinging singer, and in a vocal group you sort of follow the leader. And it's just really fun to sing with somebody who swings the way she does.
Thank you, my dear. Well, I just, Pete, I didn't mean to leave you out of my narrative there, my spiel that I did at the beginning. I just wanted to add that, when I met Dylan and he was still a student at the new school, I recognized that he liked the same kind of music that I did, and I found that very rare in somebody of his generation. Dylan is one generation behind the other three of us. I call him our youngster Bopster. It's such a rare thing to find somebody with the same taste that loved Lambert, Henriksen, Ross so much and was deep into it. So, when I got the idea to create this group and do the concert and collaborate with Dylan and then invite Holly in. She was already in anyway because we were hanging with Mark, and then Darman kept emailing me what's happening with that group. So he came in. I bet each person that I guess as the leader, I've chosen a lot of the people, including the rhythm section and each person that I've invited into the group has been my absolute only first choice, and there was nobody else I was thinking of to be a part of this group. When Darman, of course, had to go back to the New York Voices full time, the first person I called was Pete McGuiness. And I said, Pete, you are the one and only. to be our new tenor, and the same thing with Gene. I'm like, Gene, you are the one and only. And of course, Dylan and I, launching this together, he was also the one and only. I've never met anybody like Dylan. Grateful to be singing with these fantastic singers, and we have not one, but two in-house, top-shelf, world-renowned choral arrangers. And
yeah,
that is
so amazing.
Such a thrill. It's such a thrill. And I feel like their arrangements are very well represented on both of our recordings. And, Holly and I generally added a lot of lyrics, and Dylan also wrote some lyrics. I mean, we collaborated on a lot. I actually wrote one of the arrangements, Senior Blues, on our first record, and Dylan actually helped with that as well. But, we've kind of fallen into our roles a little bit, although it's very collaborative. So I just want to say I'm really grateful that all of my first choice people are together, and that, of course, includes Mark, John, Annie, Sheila, and Bob. It was amazing when they all said yes. It was just amazing. These are the people that we all grew up listening to and that we learned so much from. Right. I mean, singing along with Lambert Henriksen Ross is like getting a master's degree in how to sing bebop and how to tell a story with really fast, lightning fast lyrics. I just did a workshop yesterday for a high school in Long Island, and I showed the kids the very famous video of Annie singing Twisted at the Playboy Mansion. I think it's from 1961 or so.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's such a great piece of footage. It's in black and white. Tony Bennett is watching. Count Basie's playing the piano, and John Hendricks and Dave Lambert and Joe Williams are sitting there, and then they get up and they do, I think, Jumping at the Woodside after that. And she delivers Twisted as if it's nothing. She makes it look so easy. And every syllable, every word is so clear. And that I learned that from Annie. I sang along with those records, and that's who I patterned myself after, truly. And she was the mother of, the vocal big band trumpet gig. That was Annie. Mm-hmm. And how to make it look easy and effortless when it's actually not.
Not.
Anyway, just thought I'd throw that in.
This point and just mention now that Amy, as you've just laid out so wonderfully, like each of our kind of contributions to the group and how we all come together and share each of our contributions. I'll just mention how that plays out on the latest record on Party at 4. We've got the three of us, me, Amy, and Holly, all have lyrics represented. Pete and I did the bulk of the arrangements. What I really enjoy about these arrangements too is that we get to mix and match, between like really luxuriating in our ensemble sound and featuring one singer at a time. So everybody really gets a nice opportunity to share like their individual perspective, like being the lead for a certain tune. And on My Shining Hour, Pete gives a blistering scat solo, and on Holly's feature, Cuando Te Vea, Pete also gives a really fun mouth trombone solo. So there's just a wonderful way that we get to kind of mix and match between our strengths as soloists and lyricists, and also our group blend. And I will mention too that on Cuando Te Vea, we have guest Christian McBride on bass, who also joins us on a Misty Night, the Gypsy, which is my arrangement. And then, of course, joining us again from the first record, we've got the wonderful Sheila Jordan on Lucky to Be Me. And we were so blessed to have, in the months before he passed away, we got Bob Dorough to join us on, what is it? Baby, You Should Know It, his blues. Mm-hmm. So we got to kind of revisit some of the greats that inspired us for the first record, while also exploring more our Party of 4. That's part of where the title of the record came from, was us coming to our own a bit more as a unit.
Beautiful. The one thing I think that's very unique about what I've experienced talking to jazz musicians and just watching how all of this creativity has unfolded over this last going on a year that we've lived in a very strange time, where in one of the very few eras that there's no live entertainment. I mean, even when there was war, there was always at least a place to blow steam off and have a place where you could see live music, and that's gone, and that's kind of the hallmark of what you do. But you're able to put out music, and I'm wondering if you think at this point in our American world history
that this might be a very unique time that people are going to look back at this disc and all of these other discs that are coming out and think, wow, I remember that era, and, it may have a very special place in the annals of recorded history.
Just the one thing I would say is that, we've done a couple of remote recordings where we pieced things together from our homes. We've seen a lot of that, and I think that people are going to continue to experiment with that in various ways, in which ways we don't know at this point. It's not the same as getting together and playing a concert, but there are some interesting things about it, musically and visually. So just thought I'd throw that in there. I think the COVID, we don't know how it will change the music business, but it will. It will. Everything that's gone on and everything that we've learned is going to change things. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be like a hybrid in the future. People have learned how to use technology and create music online, which to me, I see, there's nothing like singing live with people, but people are creating art in a different manner now. So just for your listeners' information, if they want to see what we've done, we did a video of On a Misty Night, which is on our website, royalbopsters.com. It's also on Facebook and a couple of other platforms. And we also did a lovely Christmas tune that we kind of, at the last minute, said, hey, it's the Christmas season. Let's do this. Pete wrote a gorgeous arrangement of Christmas Time Is Here. And we did a video of that and released it probably right after Thanksgiving. So those two videos are floating around out there if your listeners are curious to see a video or two videos that we did recently.
I was just having a conversation last night with a friend, and we were talking about the nature of New York City jazz clubs, the kinds of things you'd think would never go away. Institutions like the Village Vanguard or Birdland or the Blue Note. We've all performed there or seen people there, and it's the heart and soul of New York jazz. And they're in a little bit of peril, I have to say. Birdland's in a little trouble. Don't know about the Blue Note or the Vanguard. And we wonder, what's going to happen to some of these venerated venues. So we're watching that. If there is a shakeup, I bet there'll be maybe more smaller or medium-sized venues in the future rather than 3 or 4 of these staple, iconic jazz clubs. So we're curious to see how New York specifically will shape up. All the other cities, too, are going to have their concerns. And also the summer, we're looking to the summer for outdoor concerts. Now, that may be something we can perform live at again because it's more safe. We'll be out in the air, and there's all those outdoor things. So we're hoping that the summer of this year, as the vaccine gets around and as the cases go down, summer outdoor events will be something we can participate in. We hope so, at least.
Going to add about these about both of these records. It's less about the COVID era, just as much as like the timing of kind of what called us together. We managed to work with and celebrate these heroes of ours as they were aging, and it's been sad to see so many of them go over the past 5 years. And so it really just has been an amazing opportunity, and we got to leave these documents with them, of their performances in their final years when they still sounded so wonderful. We're still so lucky to have Sheila going so strong, but she's the last of them, So that's it's a bittersweet, thing about these records, and something that certainly I know that I'll look back on wistfully myself on these 2 records from these few years.
Yeah, we released the album in September of 2016. Was it, guys, or 15? 2015, right?
15.
16. So we were lucky enough to book a week at Birdland, and it was pretty much sold out the entire week. And Mark Murphy was very ill at that point. He had recorded with us, it was 3 years earlier, and it was one of his last recordings, and then his health descended just about 6 months before then. He really went steeply downhill in the health department, and he was unable to make the gig at Birdland, so we had the amazing Andy Bay join us in Mark's place, and sing the pieces Red Clay and Sing Your Blues that Mark would have been on and that he recorded with us, and as well as a couple of wonderful tunes on his own. And then Mark died October 22nd, just a month after our gig. But I did go over to the nursing home, and I gave him the CD, and I played it for him, and we listened to it together, and he got to hear it. And likewise, John Hendricks and Annie and Bob Duro, we've lost them all now, but they all got a copy of the CD, and they all got to hear it, and they all loved it. So, yes, it is a wistful kind of thing, and to agree with Dylan, we were so lucky to record with our heroes, and it was such an amazing experience, and I'm really glad that they all got to hear the end result before they, passed away. So, yeah, it's an amazing thing, and I'm proud that we were able to accomplish it.
With that tapestry of this very strange world and things that are happening, and we're still in this level of ambiguity, what do you all hope we all collectively get when you do get back on the stage and we get back in the audience? What do you hope we realize about this time away? Because I think in the beginning we thought this was going to be a blip on the radar, but it's actually turned into something much, much larger right now, and I think it's probably mentally jolted us in ways that we didn't foresee. So when that does come back, what are you hoping that we all get from this?
I just think it's going to feel so good to be together in a room. I
was going to say the same thing. Absolutely.
It's just the pleasure of it is going to be so great, and just to hear the drummer. You know what I mean? Just listen to what the drummer is doing, listen to what we're doing, listen to what the bass player is doing, and see people. I did a little trio gig at a place called Cafe Lena in Saratoga Springs, a great, kind of intimate venue. And I had to pretend that there was an audience there, it was like an acting job or something, and just there's nothing like playing music for an audience or hearing live music. So it's just going to be great is the way I feel.
Yeah, I think after this COVID thing resolves itself and we have whatever becomes the new normal, people are going to be going out to jazz clubs and to Broadway shows in droves, spending money on it. People are desperate to hear and to see live entertainment. And I know that it's so unfortunate that the theater world is struggling and the jazz world is struggling now, but it's going to come back big and people are going to go out and support it. I can say, for me, I can't wait to make live music again. I can't wait to sing with Pete and Gene and Dylan again. And I know that this absence of being able to do that will result in such a deeper joy, as Gene was saying, of just an appreciation of being a live performer, appreciating the musicians on the stage and appreciating the audience. So I'm optimistic that things will come back even bigger and better than before. And that said, our plans, as Dylan and Pete were saying, we hope to have some outdoor gigs this summer. And we're also very interested in traveling across the country and really around the world and working at colleges that feature vocal jazz ensembles, because we're all vocal jazz educators for many, many years. And we're looking forward to performing and teaching at colleges around the country and around the world. So we've got that in our future.
We don't have a crystal ball either, so we're making plans and we have our hopes high. And like Amy said, I really also agree. People are going to come back in droves because it's, sitting in front of your TV, binging on Netflix is just not going to do it anymore for a lot of people. I'm sorry. Yes, we all have our programs, I know, but it's like that's not the thing, and I don't want people to get too comfortable with that, because that's not the magic of being there live for us on the bandstand and for people in the audience. I was recently performing a little bit on the stage at the college I teach at, William Patterson University. I was sitting in with one of the guest artists, another vocalist, and we were kind of yucking it up, and the cameras were going, because it was a live stream thing. And I'm like, she makes a joke, and I make a joke, and then we're looking out into the cameras, and there's no one in the audience. It was just bizarre. It was just like, well, it wasn't really bizarre, but for us it was. If you see the video, it's probably, that was cute. So, clearly people have got to, like Amy said, I think they're going to come back in droves. You've got to believe that. And we'll do every effort we can to encourage people to once the venues open up.
Well, and I think we're a lot closer right now than I think we've ever been before. And I foresee when the weather starts changing and more people are vaccinated, numbers are actually going down now. I don't think we're dealing at any level of fiction anymore. I think we're dealing in something where we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And like I said, a lot of interviews early on was kind of like, well, yeah, here in a few months, we'll be, we're already rescheduling things. I don't think we had any idea that there was going to be a second tsunami. I don't think anybody knew how this pandemic was going to play out. But what I find encouraging in Kansas City is looking and seeing what's actually happening in New York. And there's been a lot of reports of things that are opening and on the upswing. And New York was one of the first that was hardest hit. So that is the epicenter of jazz. And I do know in Kansas City this summer we did have some concerts that were in parking lots and things were still happening. So no matter what, that's, I guess, my final question to you is that, the jazz world is one of those places that people don't enter for money and prestige and fame. It's one of those creative realms that people get into because they love it. And it seems like there's kind of reinventions of things and new skills that are getting acquired. When jazz and music in earnest does come back, what do you really believe the good changes are going to be for the world of jazz that are going to be silver linings for what we've gone through?
I think what Amy was saying is, just the joy of, and maybe a certain recognition of how important this is in our lives and how much pleasure it gives us, at least for a little while. Hopefully there will be venues where we can do what we do, but when people come in contact with live music, I think they're just going to appreciate it quite a bit.
And also, not to be off color, but the music business is difficult, and it can sometimes bring out bad behavior in certain people, anywhere from club owners to agents to other musicians to whomever. And I think I'm optimistic that, this will now bring out the best behavior in all of those people. And the club owners, I think the club owners are going to appreciate, people coming in and hearing the music again, and the audiences I think everybody's going to just be on their best behavior and so appreciative of being back together as a community, the jazz community in New York City, in every city. And I'm sure in Kansas City it's the same. I know in Cincinnati, where I'm from, there's a very strong jazz community there. All around the world, there's communities in every city, but the jazz community in New York is huge. And I think people are going to just be so thrilled to see each other again and to hear live music. And I think the club owners are going to be really appreciative to have, live performances in their venues. And I think it'll maybe, bring out really the best behavior in everybody.
I hope you're right.
I hope I'm right, too.
I also think looking kind of just inward at what I've gotten to work on, over this past year, I've gained a bunch of skills. So I think so many of us can agree that with this time and this new mode that we've had to work in, we've learned a bunch of stuff that we hadn't anticipated. So I think there's a silver lining there that we don't know yet how we're going to be able to apply the new skills that we've learned. For me, I know right off the bat, I can say audio editing. I've spent a ton of time learning to do audio editing in Logic and video editing in Final Cut Pro, and I learned some very specific skills that that weren't on my list a year ago. And so there's certainly an opportunity, I think, for us to discover how we can continue to use the new things, the new tricks we've got as we move forward into the new normal.
We've all learned to call Dylan when we have a technical problem. So that's something we've learned.
That's the young generation. They grew up with this stuff. I'm totally copping out, and I know it. The cop out. Totally. Dylan, what do we do here? I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. That a lot of people have had to learn this, whether or not they want to or not. And I actually work in technology, so I know that feeling where people are helpless and I need this and that done. Can someone help me? But I think there's been a level of people that have really branched out and figured some things out. And I guess one final question I do have is that, there's been this notion that with everybody being locked up so to speak, and having all this extra time and for their creativity to flourish, do you think when everything starts kind of getting released and we get out, that there's going to be a level of musicmanship that could be a possible new genre that's going to be invented, or new sounds or things that are going to just blow us away?
Well, I'll say one thing about this, and I think this is important beyond what you're driving at, Joe, is that because this has been so hard on many people emotionally, not being able to perform, basically people are performing in their living rooms, they're practicing, or they're doing these layered things where, you do one part at a time, but it's not really performing in real time. My hope is that I hope I also have not fallen victim to this, is to not be depressed about things. Because this is extremely difficult to have to go through a time where you can't perform on stage. You can't even go to a jam session. You can't go to a rehearsal. That's doing a number on people. I mean, many of my colleagues work on Broadway, instrumental people, and they're just collecting unemployment. I mean, if nothing else than to keep our spirits up, I think that's super important, because beyond that, when things do come back, people have got to be ready to jump back in the saddle and step back up and not think the world has come to an end. And I think that's really huge. We underestimate how emotionally this has impacted people. We talk about using technology and we talk about A, B, and C, but on a very visceral, emotional level, this has been a doozy for a lot of people. And I think that I think we're going to have to pull ourselves out of that darkness. Those people that are susceptible to it, So that's important too. What that will generate musically, we don't know yet. I mean, this whole thing about the joy of coming back to performing, there may be a whole explosion of joyful music, energetic music, once we can actually perform again. I don't know.
What has already come out of this, which is this hybrid, which will result in a hybrid of live performance mixed with online performances. I mean, that is kind of a new genre. The fact that you can put a choir together with singers from every single country in the world if you want to.
Right.
Collaborate. You can perform with people from any other location. You don't have to be in the same place thanks to the computer. I think that is the new genre, and I think people absolutely are going to continue doing that, because that's kind of a wonderful and fun thing to be able to collaborate with people halfway across the world. So that's what came out of this musically, I think.
That is interesting. That's very interesting, and I've actually talked to certain people that have orchestrated almost miraculous stitchings of all of those things. So I think that's a great point to make, because I think there's going to be some lasting things from this that people think, we're going to move on and we're going to, look at this period and be like, that's what we used to do. But I think they're going to become more of a permanent part of what we did. I mean, I keep hearing this sentiment that after the Spanish flu, we had the roaring 20s, and look what happened to jazz then and what could happen now. So I think we're stepping into the unknown, but I think there's definitely going to be a jubilation on the planet with humans, and I think that people are going to want to swing. I mean, that's what the roaring 20s was all about. So,
right.
Man.
This is the business that I do. I love you jazz musicians, and I'm really promoting it. So I have for a long time, because I've seen how the younger generations think jazz is hip. It's this new thing they've never been involved with. I think there's going to be a thirst for a more analog, honey-dripping sound versus all of this electronic, mass-produced stuff that's not done by humans, it's done by computers. And maybe that's a part of this, too, is that we get back to a more aggro way of digesting the sound of music that's already miraculous to begin with.
Well, nice.
I hope you're right.
Yeah.
Hope you're right.
We can be hopeful, for sure. But that, right there, I think that kind of wraps up what I wanted to really talk with you about. Thank you for being a part of the very first massive call that was successful with everybody. This has been great.
Thanks, Joe, for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players and singers in New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to all of the members of the Royal Bopsters for their time, story, and class. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Davino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
This will be my shining hour.
Neon Jazz.